when I was introduced to the pre-thinking approach through the course, I felt it very correct. Like my mind was convinced that this is the correct approach. And even when you look closely into the solutions of official guide, you will always have that description. They'll say situation, and there is this passage which is described. So I think that pretty much perfectly aligns with what even the GMAT wants you to think. So PACE helped me save a lot of time because they had this diagnostic quizzes and they used to assess what topics I'm already good at. So that helped me a lot. I think it helped me to save like 55 to 60 hours. So that was really nice, but it was in such a way that I saved time, but I also got to revise on the concepts. And it's not about, solving those 17 questions or 16 questions correctly. It's actually about solving those 4 to 5 questions in the end, which is a hard question to be correct. And for doing those 4 to 5 hard questions correct, you have to grind a lot. So you have to practice those questions, and you have to be comfortable, because those questions are the ones that decide your score if you want to reach above 85. Deep down, I knew that I have learned something more for sure. So my score should reflect it, even if it's not reflecting during the mocks. Like I was adamant, like I told my brain that you have to trust yourself and you have to replicate and prove yourself on the testing if you did not do. So I think that factor was there. I tried to overcome that fear. And that's very important, because if you do not feel confident on the test day, there's a high chance that you would not perform well.
Hi, Sanjana. Thank you so much for coming here today. And a big, big, big congratulations on your recent 685 with a Q87, V85, and a D80. Phenomenal improvement in verbal, a brilliant 9-point improvement. So I know it has been a hard one score and quite a journey. So how does it feel to be here?
I think it feels amazing. Like after you have worked so hard, despite of the, you are aware the working hours and stuff. So I think it just feels amazing, especially the verbal. I mean, using the eGMAT course, I was kind of confident that I'm learning those concepts and thinking in the right way. But yeah, I mean, the practice questions and the Scholaranium, it all helped me a lot in achieving that score. So like, yeah, I'm super happy about it.
And of course, your diligence, how disciplined you are with your entire study plan, your study schedule, and the effort that you put in, right? And it shows. Because I think the biggest challenge for you when you started this journey was verbal, right? Where your score was a 79, and the biggest problem again there was critical reasoning.
Yes, correct.
Right? So,
Yes.
do you want to tell us what these challenges were in verbal?
Yeah, sure. So to be honest, before taking eGMAT subscription, I was using some other subscription, and yeah, and I think the way everyone else approach verbal is quite different from how eGMAT does it. And for me, it worked well because when I was introduced to the pre-thinking approach through the course, I felt it very correct. Like my mind was convinced that this is the correct approach. And even when you look closely into the solutions of official guide, you will always have that description. They'll say situation, and there is this passage which is described. So I think that pretty much perfectly aligns with what even the GMAT wants you to think. So that pre-thinking approach, like it was like a game changer for me. Before this, what I used to do was I used to read the passage, I used to jump into the question,
Mm-hmm.
then again go back to the passage, then
Mm-hmm.
again like come back to the options, and it was just taking a lot of time. But
Mm-hmm.
as soon as like I used that pre-thinking, I knew first thing that it was, I mean, it reduced my time a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
I and also by going through the master comprehension modules, which helped me to really comprehend the passage in the first go itself. So I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
to reread the passage again and again. So
Mm-hmm.
and GMAT, as all of us know, it's all about timing. So the more quickly you are able to comprehend, go to the options, eliminate the incorrect one, the better you will get into attempting all the questions, and in the end you
Mm-hmm.
will be able to pace yourself. So
Got
yeah, that
got it.
helped me a lot.
So what I really hear you say is that the pre-thinking, even before pre-thinking, the skills that you picked up in master comprehension and the pre-thinking helped you not only reduce your time but increase your accuracy and confidence also. Am
Yes,
I right?
yes,
Okay.
yes. And the master comprehension not only helps in verbal, but as much as in quants and DI.
Mm-hmm.
Because, a lot of time in quants, they have questions which, you tend to neglect that one word, and
Mm-hmm.
that one word changes the entire way you should be solving
Mm-hmm.
it. For example, in quants, there is this, when we come across a profit and loss question, we always consider profit percent over a cost price. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
in one of my official exams, there was this question, and they were asking me profit as a percentage of sale price.
Mm-hmm.
So had I
Mm-hmm.
not been mindful about that one word, I would have marked the incorrect answer. So that's where the master comprehension also helped me, like not to just rush through the question, but
Mm-hmm.
really use those pause points to read
Mm-hmm.
the question properly and then answer it.
Got it. So basically, it helped you give the right kind of attention to details so that you
Yes.
don't get sidetracked by rushing through while reading. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned pre-thinking. Now when we talk about pre-thinking, it is about first you visualize the argument, as in you read and visualize. You look at the question stem, and even before you move to answer choice analysis, you take a pause and you think
Yes.
what's the
Yes.
fault in the argument of the author before.
Yeah.
So doesn't it seem counterintuitive? Doesn't it feel like, oh, maybe I'm spending too much time doing this?
No, I think because when you practice it too often, you
Mm-hmm.
already reduce that time of thinking. Even if you were not able to reach the exact option,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
at least get into the right direction, and that's how you know what are the incorrect answers. So you
Mm-hmm.
can,
Mm-hmm.
as soon as you read them, you can eliminate them, that okay, this is definitely not the right answer.
Got it.
And then you have like those one or two options wherein you have to think a little bit more, think
Mm-hmm.
about how the conclusion is connected to
Mm-hmm.
what is
Mm-hmm.
asked. For example,
Okay.
if it's an assumption question, so how the author has drawn the conclusion, and what is
Mm-hmm.
that link that you need to find out. So yeah, then that timing, it gets reduced, and then
Got
it
it.
helps. But yeah, you
So
need a lot of practice.
yes. So that 15-20 second pause really helps you bring down your answer choice time taken for answer choice analysis
Yeah.
substantially,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Okay. And
correct.
also for all our viewers here, it takes practice. You have to solve the questions using the process so that it becomes intuitive to you, right?
Yes.
Uh, it I'm sure it also helped a great deal in reading comprehension also to be able to preempt what the author is trying to tell, which really helps you with comprehension, right? Uh,
Yes, yes.
so how was RC?
So RC, again, initially I'll tell my strategy before,
Mm-hmm,
I came on the eGMAT platform. I just used to simply read the
mm-hmm,
passage.
mm-hmm,
I had no strategy. I used to read the passage and try to answer the question. But the strategy that I got was, you do not have a lot of time to take notes. A lot of, like, there are some people who like to take notes. For
mm-hmm,
me, it didn't work because I just thought it's taking up a lot of time. But what I used to do is I used to take those paragraph summaries, P1,
mm-hmm,
P2, P3. As soon as I saw a RC question, I used to see, okay, how many paragraphs are there? So I used to have like P1, P2, P3, and then just write a one-liner summary of those paragraphs. I think that is pretty much in line with what e-GMAT strategy also suggests. So I used to take that summary, and then I think the strategy we discussed was take 3 minutes for a small RC and about 4 minutes for a large RC passage. So I used to follow that. Like I used to keep in mind that I don't have to go above that 3 minute, and subsequently answer the rest of the questions in under 1 minute. So yeah, that was my strategy. But yeah, the thing that helped me the most was taking those summaries
And
for
main
the
points notes for
yes, the main
yes.
points, which also helps to quickly come to the main point of the passage, because normally there will be a question which would ask you what is the main point of the passage, and a lot of times they would ask you the weaken and the strengthen, like what more information would undermine the belief of author or the belief stated in the passage, some those kind of questions. So when you have that thorough understanding, then only you would be able to answer those questions. Otherwise, it's very difficult to answer them. So, yeah, again, those 3 minutes practicing to fully comprehend the passage, and also getting a feel of the main point, and also knowing where those details lie in case you
Yeah.
to refer back to the passage. Yeah,
So,
so
so the ideal scenario is that you read the passage so thoroughly, you invest that time to read it so thoroughly that you avoid doing back and forth between the question and the passage, right? And
yeah,
even if you
yes,
have to, like for example, for detailed questions, as you said, you know exactly where to look for those details in the
yes,
passage, right? And that's
yeah,
that's where you are able to solve that subsequent questions within a minute. Right?
yeah, correct.
So really good, because I know that when you started, you had a whole lot of challenges, but by the time you were done, you had reached a stage wherein you were hitting good scores on sectional marks. Right?
Yeah.
So we also, we did the course, we did cementing. So you were talking about how Scholaranium questions really helped you fine tune that the what you learned from the course. Do you just want to elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah, sure. Should I go section wise, or
No, we can talk
you?
in context of verbal, and when we get to
Okay.
points, we can talk about
Okay,
points
sure.
there.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I think for cementing for verbal, we have CR and RC.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, like, I used to talk to you, I was like, we are not getting that accuracy in those subsections. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when you advised me to spend some more time. And then it got better because I
Yes.
was solving like questions and then referring to some of the official questions and then coming back and
Mm-hmm.
forth. So, I think, yeah, so the thing is, when you're solving questions on Scholaranium, I there are like two opinions. Some people say that the more the questions you solve, the better you will get.
Mm-hmm.
That might not be always the case, and especially not the case when you're doing verbal,
Mm-hmm.
because verbal is all about understanding first. It doesn't matter if you solve 1,000 questions or you solve 100 questions. If you're solving 100 good questions and you understand all of them very thoroughly, then you don't have to solve the 900 questions.
Yes.
So yeah, so I think that was very helpful. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
even when I was solving, I used to make sure that I even if I got an answer incorrect, I used to make sure I am doing that right kind of thinking. So next
Mm-hmm.
time I do not repeat that mistake. And I think the SMEs on eGMAT platforms are very friendly. So
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of times when you think, no, I think this explanation is is not very convincing, and then you can, write a follow-up query, and they're very quick to
Mm-hmm.
answer. So there were some of the questions like I was challenging them, and they were like, explaining it to me why this
Mm-hmm.
approach is incorrect and why this is correct. So that helped me a lot. Some questions were actually like very tough. Like it really forces you to think in,
Mm-hmm.
a way which is relevant in the business world. So it's not just about taking the exam. It really helps. to develop that business-minded thinking as well, especially when it comes to critical thinking. So yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, I made it a point that when I solved questions, I understand why I got the answer correct and
Mm-hmm.
why I got incorrect.
Okay. Got
So
it. Yeah. So it is not just important to know that you got a question right, but it you should have also gotten it right for the right reasons.
yes, yes,
So that's very, and that's what helped you, get to
yeah,
this phenomenal score. Now coming to quant, Sanjana, I know that, you were already at a Q85, right? But
yeah,
you had sort of, I think, hit a ceiling when it comes to quant. The score had sort of plateaued, right?
yeah,
That's when, we decided that let's do the course for quant.
yes,
Okay. So despite starting out at a fairly good ability level at of Q85, you did the course, um, reached that Q87, which ideally should have been 89, but for the smaller
yeah.
group. But tell me how important was doing the course and really helping you get the top score on quants.
Yeah. So the good thing is that the course is structured in like four subsections:
Mm-hmm.
number properties, word problems, algebra, and I think advanced topics.
Yes.
So this first of all, it helps you to, have that four different topics in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's very helpful, like you identify, okay, the word problem thing, it's going to come into this module, and then
Mm-hmm.
let me brush that up. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to happen that you're randomly solving questions. You have
Mm-hmm.
that topic wise approach. And then
Mm-hmm.
on the other hand, the pace. So
Mm-hmm.
pace helped me save a lot of time because they had this diagnostic quizzes and they used to
Mm-hmm.
assess what topics I'm already good at. So that
Mm-hmm.
helped me a lot. I think it helped me to save like 55 to 60
Yeah.
hours. So that was really nice, but it was in such a way that I saved time, but I also got to revise on the concepts, and I also got to thoroughly uh, like get to study some of the concepts which I might have neglected earlier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Got
And
it.
yeah, since the Scholaranium has like a bunch of like really good questions, it
Mm-hmm.
really helps to prepare you to face any kind of question on the exam day. Like you wouldn't feel, oh, I've never solved this kind of question, because
Mm-hmm.
you would have solved it definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so the variety of questions that are available in the Scholaranium platform is like it's incredible. Yeah.
That's very good to know. I think with pace, you've saved more time than you actually spent on phones, right?
Yeah.
And I'm glad that it was able to because of the approach wherein you took the diagnostic quizzes and skipped the files that you were already strong with and just went through the files that you're weak at. It really helped us weed out those smaller weakness that you had, which was sort of
Yes.
making your score plateau at some stage when it comes to quants. And the Scholaranium, yes, I know that you were your stats look brilliant. If my connectivity was better, I would have really wanted to share that screen. But you know, uh, how helpful was the practice on Scholaranium? Because you and I were discussing, and you said that these questions, the level of questions that Scholaranium has, really helped you get to a stage wherein a lot of questions that you solved on the test seemed simpler,
Yeah.
easier, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How critical was this practice? Through cementing, through custom quizzes, through sectional mocks that you did on Scholaranium to get to that 87, which should have been
Yeah.
99.
Yeah. Yeah. So like you said, I had a score of 85, and I mean, once you have that score, there's a very good chance that it plateaus out.
Yes.
So, I think why it does is we all know that there are like those 4 to 5 questions in the end which are brutal,
Mm-hmm.
which will decide your destiny for quants,
Mm-hmm.
basically. So, and it's not about, solving those 17 questions or 16 questions correctly. It's actually about solving those 4 to 5 questions in
Mm-hmm.
the end, which is a
Mm-hmm.
hard question to be correct. And for doing those 4 to 5 hard questions correct, you have to grind a lot. So you have to practice those questions, and you have to be comfortable, because that those questions are the ones that decide your score when you if you want to reach above 85. So and yeah, there are like some incredibly tough questions in Scholaranium, and I think sometimes it's fine, like if you do not understand at all what's happening, it's fine. Maybe like you could approach your mentor, or you could ask an SME on the platform. But I think majority of the hard questions are those which you should practice, because they develop your thinking ability. And those 4 to 5 questions which we all know, like which decides your fate in quants, you will like you will like solve it as a charm, like as it happened in my case, right? So I was like, I felt the last questions to be very easy, and I panicked. I was like, either I did some mistakes in the beginning, or I just thought the questions are like trap questions, and I ended up changing one correct answer to incorrect answer. So yeah, but yeah, that's what I'm telling, because I think I've solved a lot of hard questions that I could solve the actual hard questions in the exam very easily. So that was the plus point for me.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
And I would encourage anyone who is doing the course to not neglect those hard questions. If it's like super hard, if you cannot think how the process scales, or like how the process is flowing, it's fine. But I think you should try to like solve all those hard questions, because that will build your ability.
Actually. And I think the real learning lies in the questions that you are not able to solve, right?
Yes.
If you're just breezing through all the questions during your practice, yes, it is good. That tells you you're at a great stage, but the actual learning happens from those few questions that you get wrong or you're not able to solve.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So that's very, very nice, Sanjana. I know this prep wasn't easy.
Yeah.
You were pulling in 12, 13 hours a day, right?
Yeah.
And given the profile of your job, it is not just mentally exhausting, it is physically exhausting also, because you were on the field and all that stuff. And yeah, as I said, forgive me if I pushed you too much, but you
Yeah,
know,
no, you pushed me for my good, so I'm happy about it. Yeah, if you had you not pushed me, I might have not got the score. So
no, I
so
think
yeah.
yeah, you being just too generous to me, because you have been very few instances wherein I have had to push you. Honestly, you hardly gave me any chance to do that. So how were you able to do this? Because it is, it for me personally, end of the day, if you were to ask me to put in more mind share than what I have already put in, it is going to be challenging. So how were you able to manage this?
Yeah. So I think how we discussed about is was like, first I was doing verbal, then I did quants, and then I was doing DI.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very essential to be in touch with the verbal part, and also the quants part, of course, the formulae and all. So for me, because it takes like 1.5 hour commute for me to reach to my office. So I had the GMAT Club app. I had access to eGMATs, the website.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to be in the bus, I used to solve some of the CR questions, like just one or two, or maybe, just skim through some of the quants formula. So that is how I used to get a little bit of revision during the time at work. Sometimes you get lunch break, and then you have like 10 to 15 minutes. So that's how I used to stay in touch
Mm-hmm.
during my office hours. And then, yeah, after coming back home, I didn't have a lot of time, but I made it a point to at least study for 2 hours
Mm-hmm.
after
Mm-hmm.
coming back. So
Okay.
either it could be sometimes like half an hour in the morning before I go, or after I come back from work, 1.5 hours. And I used to study like 6 to 7 hours on weekends,
Okay.
Saturday and Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was what we discussed and decided upon, that I should be investing 20 hours a week, and I really wanted to stick to that commitment. So yeah, so
And you did a brilliant job at that. Right? Yeah.
yeah,
So I think, yeah, consistency is super, super critical because if we say no, we are going to pull all-nighters over the weekend, but we are going to slack
yeah,
over the weekdays, it doesn't
yeah,
give you the kind of impact that you've had because you've been consistent, right? Either during commute, outside of the office, just stay. Because GMAT, I think, means and deserves that the kind of priority that you
yes,
sort of
yes,
assigned it. And that's
yeah,
where, that's what differentiates great scorers from others, right? Now coming to Sanjana, I know that the mocks did not go as expected. The scores were varying. You were not able to hit this kind of a score on the mocks. And I know it is demotivating, right?
yeah,
But I also know that you picked yourself up, you trusted in the prep that you put in and the ability that you had built and gave it your all on the testing. So
yeah,
how are you able to transform that mindset wherein from a demotivated person, you were like super confident on the
yeah,
test day and you said, I'm going to make it happen. So just take us through that journey and that mindset.
yeah, yeah. So, uh, I've been preparing since 3.5 months, as you know. So I when I was preparing, I knew that I am learning something.
Mm-hmm,
Now there were points wherein I was not able to reflect it properly during the mock test,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
part of it is due to the behavioral issues, because I'd attempted GMAT before,
mm-hmm,
and there was a kind of a pressure that I
mm-hmm,
have to move past my earlier score.
mm-hmm,
So I used to have that feeling, but deep down I knew that I have learned something more for
mm-hmm,
sure.
mm-hmm,
So my score should reflect it, even if it's
mm-hmm,
not reflecting during the mocks. Like I was adamant, like I told my brain that you have to trust yourself, and
mm-hmm,
you have to replicate and prove yourself on the
mm-hmm,
testing if you did
mm-hmm,
not do. So I think that was there, that factor was there. I tried to overcome that fear, and
mm-hmm,
that's very important, because if you do not feel confident on the test day, there's a high chance that you would not perform well.
mm-hmm,
So yeah, I had to separate it. Like I took some time. 2 days before the test, I was not preparing anything. I was just going through some of the,
mm-hmm,
like just revising stuff, maybe having look at some of the quant formulae and all. But those 2 days, I really took the time. I told myself that whatever happened, if you got a low score, that's fine. But the fact remains that you have studied enough, and you have studied
mm-hmm,
more, and you have studied
mm-hmm,
in a more structured way, so the score should reflect. So that was the positive attitude I kept in mind,
mm-hmm.
going into the test center.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the moment you marked that quant question from correct to incorrect, you knew that, you were not going
Yes,
to get that quant score. But I think you also then regathered yourself and gave it your best shot for verbal.
yeah.
That's also, yeah. What was going on your
So as soon as I realized that I marked an incorrect answer, like changing it from correct to
mind?
incorrect, and just a minute after that, the verbal section had started. And the first question, obviously, all the time it's CR question. And I was reading the line once, twice, thrice, and I'm like, you have to take a moment. Just
Mm-hmm,
take a 10
mm-hmm,
seconds pause, close
mm-hmm,
your eyes. I close my eyes. It's like whatever happened, happened. I cannot do anything about it. I
mm-hmm,
have to gather my focus and sit through the test. And yeah, that's how I did. Then after that first question, I think I might have taken like 3 minutes to solve it,
mm-hmm.
because yeah, I was like thinking about so many different things. And then, yeah, that one question, once it was done, then I tried to again engage with the content questions, and I moved through the section.
Got it.
Yeah.
No, that's a remarkable turnaround, I should say. the V85 just proves to say how you regrouped yourself and gave it your best.
Yeah.
So, Sanjana, you and I have worked through the Last Mile Push program, right? You've been a part of it from quite some time ago itself. So, any feedback on the program? How?
Yeah. I mean, there are a few pointers which really stood out to me because when I reached out to the eGMAT team, like you all were very quick to respond to me. And I remember you made a small video, and I was like, wow, that is so good. And it felt like personal because when you connect at that level to somebody, I really felt that, okay, I would be taken care of if I go through the LMP. So that was first thing. The second thing is compared to others in the same industry, eGMAT is charging very, very reasonable rate, I must say. And with this amount of personalized attention, I think it's really worth it. So, and yeah, of course, the course is great, but having a mentor
Mhm.
is it's really helpful because you always told me, okay, I think this section you have to improve a bit. Why don't you solve questions uh, in advanced topics or in word problems, and then let's see how it goes. So I think that constant encouragement had helped me a lot. So yep, I think yeah, that's why this is like a differentiator from rest of the programs.
Got it, got it. So it's been a pleasure working with you. I'm going to miss our calls, but you
Yeah,
know,
me
uh,
too.
yes. So, Sanjana, it's been an eventful journey. It has been a long journey. Are there any parting thoughts that you have? Any key takeaways from this journey that you want to share with others?
Yeah, I think when you decide to take a GMAT and prepare for it, consistency is the key. You have to put in those hours, whatever you decide on a like throughout the week. And it's also as much as about having those strategies because as you had explained to me that you don't have to have 100 percentile in all of the sections and subsections.
Mhm.
There are certain targets, and if you hit those, you'll automatically reach that score that you want. So having that mindset and that strategy is very important. It's not just about knowing what you are like, just knowing the concept. It's
Mhm.
about how skillfully and how smartly and how effectively you are able to do it. And that comes from practice. So I think, yeah, those are the key takeaways. And it's obviously about the mindset. Like I told,
Mhm.
for me, few days before the exam, I was kind of feeling demotivated and I got myself out of it. So I think there would be ups and downs,
Mhm.
but you have to consistently work and not lose your hope and not get demotivated. And even if you do, then bring yourself back again on track. So I
Yeah.
think that's the key.
Yes, because I think it is not a linear journey, right? As you
Yeah,
rightly said, there will be ups and downs, but yeah, when you look at ups and wade through the downs is when you reach the summit. So
yeah.
I'm so happy, Sanjana, that we are having this conversation. And, I know you're getting into the next part of your journey, your applications and all that. So wishing you all the very best for that. Uh,
Thank you.
yes. So on behalf of the entire eGMAT family, we are rooting for you here.
Thank you so
Wish you
much.
all the best.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
thank you. Thank you. Bye.